Welcome to the unknown, a place where ghosts, cryptids, and extraterrestrials are sought. This is where you'll find answers to questions about what lurks in the dark. This is Periscope Uncensored.
Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Periscope Uncensored here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Alabama. I am Clarissa Vasquez, and riding shotgun this evening, once again from the same room, we haven't done this since February, is the ruffles in my potato chips, Mr. Joe White.
How you doing, everybody?
And first of all, Joe, I have to ask you, how are you?
I'm doing swell. How are you?
I am tired.
Yeah.
We have been traveling. Well, I've been traveling for over a week now, and you've been traveling since Tuesday, and we're tired.
I may be tired, but I'm not as tired as you are.
Yeah, a lot of long days driving in the car. And I spent 3 days driving from Colorado to Massachusetts to get you, and, hung out in Massachusetts for a few days. And then you and I hopped in the car on Tuesday morning, and we're still not back in Colorado. We have pit stopped for the night in Kansas City, Missouri. So we still have 12 more hours to go, but because we're spending a couple hours with all of our wonderful listeners, we decided we were going to stop for the night. So tonight, folks, we are going to have none other than the Rev. That's right. Shawn Whittington is going to be on the show with us after our first break of the evening. He's going to be talking about his new book, God, Ghosts, and the Paranormal Ministry, which hit the shelves on St. Patrick's Day, appropriately enough, because his middle name happens to be Patrick. And we're going to be talking to him about his book and about some of his experiences. We may even talk about his radio show on another network that we don't talk about. And it's going to be a good time. It's going to be a good time. And I'm going to apologize in advance, kind of, sort of, not really sorry, to Denise Pridemore from Paranormal Pride. We know that she and the Rev are good friends, and she doesn't get to have him on her show because his show airs the same time as hers. So, neener. That's all right. We love Denise. We love her show, and, we understand, scheduling conflicts. Those things happen, and so, her scheduling conflict is our game, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And then coming up next week, we're going to flip the script again, guys. We had such a great response from a few weeks ago when Cuvid was a guest co-host on the show and interviewed Joe. We're going to do it again next week, only Cuvid is going to be interviewing me. So it's about a 50-50 split as far as opinion goes as to whether or not I'm going to eat him alive. And, there's a part of me that thinks Cuvid may not mind that.
Yeah.
But so, Joe, we've had some adventures over the last couple of days, though.
We have.
Yeah. So the first big stop that we made, well, we made a little stop before the first big stop, but we got to see Aubrey Baldwin, who was a guest on the show back in March. We got to hang out with her for a little while and spend some time with her. And let me tell you, folks, she has given me an entire list, 8.5 by 11 page of things to call Joe when I'm introducing him on the air.
Thank you, Aubrey. That's all I got to say.
and actually, the ruffles in my potato chip, that's an Aubreyism.
An Aubreyism?
Yes, it's an Aubreyism.
Wow.
That was all her. That wasn't me. I come up with things like the sprinkles on my donut.
Can't see me, folks, so I'm sitting here just shaking my head no.
Yeah, no. But what? Tell the listeners about our big adventure. Where did we go on Tuesday?
We actually stopped in, never been, always wanted to go, but we stopped in Gettysburg. And we went to Devil's Den and Sachs Bridge. We didn't get to stay long because it was late in the day. But it was amazing. Completely 100% amazing. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I want to go back, though. I want to do some, actual investigating now.
That would be fun. That would be fun. I got to do that last summer when I was there. And let me tell you, there's a lot of great groups out there that do guided investigation tours at night. It's not cheap, but it's a lot of fun. And you don't even have to bring your own equipment. You know, they've got equipment that they'll demonstrate how it works. And, sometimes they'll let you use it, or sometimes you can watch them using it. But they take you to places like Sachs Bridge and Devil's Den and some other battlefield spots. I think there's even one at the Jenny Wade House, which we drove past the Jenny Wade House, but we didn't go in just because we were short on time.
Right.
But we did see a cemetery while we were there, and we stopped and got some really cool photographs there. And a lot of the pictures that we took while we were in Gettysburg are up on our Facebook page. So if you go to facebook.com/Periscope Uncensored, you can see those pictures. You can also see pictures of us with Aubrey. So, we had a great day on Tuesday, and then yesterday was just more driving until the weather got really bad, and we had to stop for the night, and got up this morning, and the weather was really bad again. But we had to keep going, and so we've only got 12 hours left on this road trip. And I don't know about you, but I'm ready to be home.
Yeah.
This has been more road trip than either of us really wanted, I think. But worth it.
But thank God it's not as bad as Chevy Chase and National Lampoon's Vacation.
Right, yeah. No, it hasn't been like that. We're not going to Wally World, so.
America's favorite family fun park. Uh-huh.
How's that go, Joe?
I don't know.
Oh, can you say that one more time? I don't think the listeners quite heard it.
I think they heard it.
You think they heard it?
Yeah.
But getting back to Aubrey, we're going to have her back on the show here in a couple of weeks. She was gracious enough to agree to come back on the show with us. So she may have more nicknames for you then.
Oh, great. Can't wait for that.
Now, we like Aubrey. She's a great person. She was great to talk to on the air back in March, and, getting to hang out with her in person, that was a treat. And, lots of fun, lots of laughs, and, just a really cool person to hang out with and spend some time with. I'm glad that we got to do that. I really am.
So am I. And going back to the Gettysburg thing, and you and I have discussed this before we went on air about possibly going back next year.
Right.
To investigate Pennsylvania,
yeah.
Gettysburg.
Yeah, because there are a lot of places that we were driving through, we really wanted to stop and see, but because we're so limited with time, we didn't get to,
Right.
Valley Forge, the Flight 93 Memorial, all kinds of places in the state of Pennsylvania, Philadelphia. I would love to go and spend a few days in Philly.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have talked about, taking a week maybe next year and just going to Pennsylvania and, road tripping all over that state. And I think that'd be fun.
Well, another thing that we discussed was that having people that we know that investigate out in the
mm-hmm.
field come with us
mm-hmm.
and have one big, massive group.
Yeah, that would be fun.
That would be fun.
So anybody that's interested in possibly joining us on that expedition, hit us up either on our Facebook page, facebook.com/Periscope Uncensored, or you can hit us up via email, para-scope@mail.com. Those are the best ways to get in touch with us. And let's see, what else do we have coming up? We've been so single focused on this adventure. I think, we're flipping the script next week. We're going to have Aubrey the week after that. We had Mike Brody, the paranormal comedian. We had him scheduled to be a guest, but things happened, and he actually had to take a paying gig on the nights when we are broadcasting. So we're trying to get him rescheduled. What we may end up doing is a pre-recorded show and then just airing a pre-recorded show. We don't like to do that. We'd rather go live with you guys. But sometimes it's more important to, get the guest out there, get their information out there, and because it's just as much about the guests as it is about us.
Yes.
So we'll keep you posted on that as to, when we're going to have Mike Brody on the show and whether or not he's going to be live. So, and, on this road trip, Joe, you and I have been talking about some paranormal theories, and, especially in Gettysburg. And I know you like to contemplate and ponder, time loops and time warps and time slips and stuff like that. And we had a pretty interesting discussion shortly after we were in Gettysburg. I think we were talking about it last night when we were in Indiana. But, you were pondering, whether or not the spectral entities that are in Gettysburg and have been captured more than once on film, both video and still photography. You're questioning, whether or not they're actually in a time loop. Is that how you phrased it?
That was how I phrased it. It's just that excuse me, it's either a time loop. It's kind of there's a thin line with that, where it's like the time frames overlap, or it could be more towards residual. But it's like I said, there's a fine line between the two. And I think that it just goes if it is a time slip, I think it's more like they're still fighting this thing back in their time, and it's just however it works, with the lunar phase or the planets align or whatever natural phenomena, that they ended up just coming into its own, so you could actually see them or hear them or whatever.
Right. And I'm inclined to think that it isn't necessarily a time loop or a time slip. I'm thinking it's more GPT. I'm thinking it's more geographic psychic trauma. That what we're witnessing isn't necessarily conscious entities, but more of an energy imprint. I'm thinking it's geographic psychic trauma that, because what happened in that area was so catastrophic that it left a psychic imprint on the land, which gives us the occasional visual representation of what happened so long ago, during the Civil War. Which is, it's possible, it's plausible. Yes?
Yes.
So, and because, we didn't have a show last week because I was traveling, and, we ended up playing an archive last week. We did not have the opportunity to send our condolences out to the friends, family, and fans of Lorraine Warren, who passed away. And so we definitely want to do that. We want to, send our condolences out. For those who don't know who Lorraine was, she and her husband, Ed, were pioneers in the field of paranormal investigation. They really paved the way for those of us who do today, what we do, seeking the answers to those universal questions that we all share about, what happens to us after we die? Is there life after death, et cetera, et cetera. And she and her husband, Ed, were essential in paving the way for those of us that do it today. But of course, the bottom dweller strikes again. That person who will not be named or even assigned a gender has gone and claims that they have made contact with Mrs. Warren via the use of their spirit box. And
Yep.
Joe, you and I have talked about this pretty thoroughly, that, I think it is rude and disrespectful not only to the departed to try to contact them so recently after death, but it is downright disgraceful to their families who are freshly grieving. These people are hurting. They've just lost their loved one. And here comes this bonehead with their spirit box saying, and they go on their YouTube channel and play this spirit box session and claim that it is the loved one that these people have so recently lost. And it's disrespectful, it's disgraceful, it's disgusting. However, I'm going to throw a monkey wrench in this. I'm going to throw a little fly in the ointment. And you and I talked about this the other day, Joe, and you were kind of laughing at me.
Yep.
Because I've got a pretty solid stance on this and on this person. However, if it is appropriate to contact anyone under those conditions, under those circumstances, immediately following their departure, Lorraine would be the one to do.
Yeah.
I think she would have been 100% okay with this individual trying to contact her within hours after her passing. Do you agree?
I think that she'd be okay with it, but however, like you said, maybe her family wouldn't be okay with that.
Right.
And has this individual contacted Ed when he passed?
I don't know. They believe that the best time to make contact using their method is within hours after the individual passes, so probably not, because it's been so long since Ed passed. But I do know there was a lot of controversy when Mark and Debbie Constantino passed. They were, within hours after the news broke that the Constantinos were gone, they were on their YouTube channel with their device claiming to have made contact with one or both of them. I don't know. I don't follow this person just because they are a bottom dweller, and I have absolutely no respect for them, which is why I will not refer to them by name or even assign them a gender. But on that note, it is time for our first break of the evening. But when we come back, we're going to have Shawn the Rev Whittington on the line with us. We're going to be talking about his new book, God, Ghosts, and the Paranormal Ministry. So stay tuned, folks. You are listening to Periscope Uncensored on WBHM Digital Broadcasting, and we will be right back. Welcome back to Periscope Uncensored on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Alabama. I'm Clarissa Vasquez. Riding shotgun this evening is the cream in my Oreo cookie, Mr. Joe White.
How you doing, everybody?
And folks, we have got a genuine, legitimate treat for you tonight. We need the theme music for Space Odyssey. Da, 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 da.
Right?
We have got none other than the Rev himself. We have got Shawn Whittington on the line. Good evening, sir. How are you?
Hello, this is Reverend Shawn Whittington. Can I help you? Who am I speaking with? Is this Clarissa and Joe?
Of course it is.
Yes, it is.
On Cat's Fabulous Network, WBHM. Was that tonight?
That was tonight.
You just caught me. I was going out to dinner. I'm sure glad I logged into my computer.
You're killing me.
I can now retire. I was been waiting for a sign to let me know it was time to just let go, let God, and enjoy my golden years. And it's never going to get better for me than being on WBHM tonight. So thank you all for inviting me. And now I know I can just ride off into the sunset, because it's not going to get any better.
Well, I've been a guest on your show twice now. And so, we figured it was about time we returned the favor. And the timing couldn't have been better, actually, because you just had a new book come out on St. Patrick's Day.
Absolutely. That's right. I did have a book come out. Wow. Yeah, it's been quite the life. I know there's a lot of people out there. I'm not a writer. I'm not Stephen King. My book will never be on the New York Times bestseller list, but it's my book, and it took, 3 years of me putting my blood, sweat, and tears literally down through pen to paper. And there was a lot of, I was getting help the whole time by Spirit to write the book, and it was a book inspired by Spirit and divine intervention and a lot of other things, but it was tough. It was very hard to do. I had to do a lot of soul searching. I had to dig real deep and go to places that I didn't expect I'd have to revisit again, and dig up all those old memories, and good, bad, or indifferent, pull a lot of old scabs off a lot of old wounds that I didn't think I would be able to do. So for me, it was very hard, because not only, like I said, I'm not a writer, but I knew that there were a lot of people on this side of the veil and the other side counting on me to deliver. So I felt pressure too. And when I finally finished it, the pressure, it was like the whole time I was sitting in a crock pot, and finally somebody just turned it off, not even down to warm, but just turned it off and lifted the lid off. And I could just feel this release of this pressure of feeling that, I was being basically told, you've got to do this. And I'm blessed. Everybody knows I'm blessed. I'm always saying how blessed I am, and I know that I am. And people have received the book very well, and I'm happy about that too. I know that there's messages in the book for some people out there. I don't know exactly what those messages are, and I don't know who the people are, but I know there's going to be messages in there for some people. And I'm hoping if those messages get to those people, then I'm fine. I'm good. The book doesn't have to, like I said, get on the New York Times bestseller list, or I'm happy with it just the way it is. And my publisher, Annette Munich at Stellium, we were already friends for quite some time, and I used to joke with her all the time about, I'm going to write a book one of these days, and you're going to be my publisher. Yeah, sure. I did, and she was there for me, and she exceeded all my expectations, and I think she did a great job on the finished product, and I'm just happy, guys. I don't know what else to tell you. I'm just really happy.
So God, Ghosts, and the Paranormal Ministry, which is the title of the book, and I have to tell you, Rev, I bought it right after it came out, and I'd had the opportunity to skim it. I have not had the opportunity to read it thoroughly. My life has been chaos for the last few weeks.
I know
but what I have read has been phenomenal. So what was the turning point that made you go, okay, I have to write this book? It can't just be any book. I have to write this book.
Well, you all know what I do. I'm an ordained exorcist. So I knew that had to be in there. That's a big part of, me right now. And I was created. I realized this about 15 years ago, that I was actually created in my mother's womb by divine intervention to be walking the path that I'm walking today. So I knew that I had to have that in the book, but I was sharing caregiver hospice care for my parents with my younger brother the last year of my father's life and last 2 years of my mother's life. They since passed on and went to heaven. May they rest in peace. But I had moved all their stuff into my home because I couldn't afford to pay their mortgage. We tried to sell the home, and the real estate agent we hired dropped the ball miserably, and I ended up having to let their home go into foreclosure. So I moved all their stuff in here. My garage is full. One of our bedrooms, extra bedrooms, is totally full. And then there's a lot of other stuff scattered through my office here and some other places in the house. But all of that stuff's here. And I would hear somebody, well, I live in a haunted house. I don't know if you know that or not. Clarissa, you and I may have talked about it. Sharon and I live in a haunted house. So I don't pay attention to all of the stuff that goes on all the time. I just figure, oh, they're acting up a little bit tonight. No big deal. Let me just turn the volume up a little bit more, or, go have a snack, go to bed, whatever. But I would always hear somebody rummaging around in the room where all their stuff was at. Sure enough, if I walked in there, something would appear that I knew wasn't there, that was hidden away amongst the stuff. But something would catch my eye and appear that as soon as I looked at it and grabbed a hold of it, it was like I would have a complete flashback of something from my past, whether it had to do with a personal memory or something of my father or mother's, or something that, was really important in our lives all together as a family. And so I just knew this is a sign. Somebody's telling me that I have to write this story. And then among some of the regular spirits that Sharon and I have seen here on a pretty regular basis, I started seeing other spirits, like 2 older Indian women. And it dawned on me, I started going through the archives of old photos, and I realized it slipped my mind that my father's mother was half Wyandotte Seneca Indian, and one of them really resembled her. The other, not so much. I believe she was a visiting Indian spirit from a nearby ghost town here that I had visited and did an exorcism on some property there. And she visited me to ask me to come back and do that for some more properties in that area, which took me a couple of months to do. And I saw her all the time. But as soon as I was able to get back there and do that, make good on my promise to her, I stopped seeing her here. But the other apparition, every time I would see that apparition, I just knew there's ancestors are trying to tell me something. But the most vivid visitations came in when I was dreaming, and they would be always back in time, always like my life was replaying itself right in front of me. But they would be particular times in my past with my mother, with my father, with my sisters, my brother, what have you, really dramatic turning points and significant times in our life. And this just happened. I mean, I didn't go to bed. I knew going to bed every night, I wonder what I'm going to dream about tonight. And they would just be so vivid. Sometimes they would launch me out of bed, and I would just be standing in the middle of a dark living room. My sister Sharon would be asleep, the dogs would be asleep, and I'm, trying to catch my breath and standing in the darkness going, wow, that was intense. So I just knew. And I'm telling you, it was like when I would sit down and say a couple of prayers for, whoever's right here watching over me, to just, you're going to have to help me through this because I don't have a clue what I'm doing. I would just all of a sudden, the ideas would start coming. Now, all of the stuff about exorcisms and cases I worked, I didn't know I was going to put that in right away because some of them, I knew I couldn't go halfway on them. That if I was going to tell those stories, I had to totally go balls to the wall with it. So I talked to a lot of colleagues in the field that knew me, helped me on many cases, my priest, a lot of other clergy, and asked their opinions. And all of them said, some of these cases you may be opening a can of worms, putting them down on paper again. You'll be the first to know. But if you're going to tell these stories, absolutely tell them with a good heart and with good meaning, and have that be behind why you're telling the story, and it'll all work out good. So I made that decision, and now, the book is what it is. But I hopefully, I've joked around about I get all of these I didn't see that coming moments. And one of them was people all of a sudden were buying my book because they wanted to support my ministry, but they would reach out to me and say, I have your book, but I have no intention on reading it. Just wanted you to know that I support your ministry and I bought it, but it's probably going to be too scary for me. Because they heard me say things like, don't read it alone, don't read it at night, say your prayers before you go to bed. And I had to confess to her and confess on air on my show that I was being a bit dramatic. But when it comes to that subject matter, you had to be very careful and tread lightly. And she said, well, I'll read the book if you weren't kidding about the part that you bless the book every morning. And I said, absolutely. And I wake up every morning, I log on the computer, I log in God, Ghosts, and the Paranormal Ministry. I always pull up Amazon because it's just easy. When it comes up on the screen, I get on my knees, I put my right hand on the computer screen, and I say a couple of very powerful prayers of deliverance and a couple of very powerful prayers of protection. Not only over the book, but everybody that buys the book that day. Of course, the ones I physically have here in the office that I autograph and mail out, I'm able to lay hands on. But yes, for all of you out there that are listening that have the book and are scared to read it, I've got your back. You're all on the prayer list. I bless the books every day, and it's safe. But having said that, you still probably shouldn't read it alone or at night, and definitely say your prayers before you go to bed, because I have had people reach out to me and just said, things that I only thought you would see in the movies, you brought to life on these pages here, and I'll never be the same. So good, bad, or indifference, I take it all, and I'm just happy the way it turned out.
Now, Rev, did your parents believe in or support your calling as an exorcist?
I would imagine, I feel right now from heaven and watching over me in spirit that they do, but we didn't talk about it much growing up. My father's life was spared twice in his life. Once when he was in the Navy, he was sunk on a ship by the Japanese. He's a 25-year retired Master Chief in the United States Navy, also fought World War II, Korea, finished his career in naval intelligence, very credible individual. But he told us the story of, drowning out at sea. He was floating around in the water after his ship went down for probably 24 plus hours, violently ill, hanging onto a piece of wood. And when the rescue ship finally came, he was too weak to make it to the ship. And the ship actually got underway. They figured they got everybody they were going to get. They had to get out of there because the enemy was still very thick in the area. And he knew, well, they're going to drag me home dead, but I'm not going to be left here. Found a piece of rope in the water and wrapped it all around his body. And he could actually feel the rope tighten and start to pull him through the water. And he heard a voice say, there's one more over the side. And he looked up and saw a very large sailor jump over the side of the ship, and while hanging on with one hand, reached into the water, grabbed my father by the scruff of his shirt collar, and tossed him up on the deck of the ship, where he passed out for about 48 hours. And when he woke up, he had a little tent over him, and corpsmen were taking care of him. But he knew 100%, after he scoured that ship and couldn't find that sailor who saved his life, he couldn't even find people that remembered seeing the incident. It was like one second he wasn't there, then the next he was. He knew it was his guardian angel that saved his life. And he went through his whole life believing that. And we all believed it too. And then he contracted, during the Korean War, he contracted spinal meningitis and encephalitis. And he was actually on his deathbed. Yeah. And the doctor called my mother and said, if you want to see your husband alive by morning, get here now, because he's not going to make it. And they had him strapped into a hospital bed because he was out of his mind, in and out of a coma. And when he was awake, he was very violent. But on the way to the hospital, she stopped at the nearby church, and I always tell people, don't try to make a deal with God. Pray for what you want. Pray for help. Pray for his intervention. But don't make a deal. But she made a deal with him. She wasn't supposed to have any more kids because the birth of my second oldest sister almost killed her. And she begged for God to spare his life. And if he did, she would, from that moment on, whenever she went to church, she would do it on her hands and knees. And she would also have another child. Well, she went to the hospital, fell asleep at his bedside, woke up in the morning. He was wide awake sitting there and said to her, "Edith, what am I doing strapped to this bed?" She, of course, freaked out, yelled for all the doctors and nurses. They came in. They ran every test possible, and they couldn't find any remnants of the disease, trace of the disease at all in his system.
Wow.
So she kept her bargain. Till she was too old and physically unable to do that, she crawled on her hands and knees whenever she went to church. And she did have another child, and that was, ta-da, yours truly. And I saw a lot of ghosts growing up, which freaked me out. And my mother finally confided in me that my older sisters were very gifted, as my mother was, and obviously I was. And she said, "You're going to see a lot of ghosts in your life. Don't be afraid of them. They're just people that don't have a body anymore. Ask them what you can do to help them. And if you can help them, great. If you can't, tell them they need to move on, that you can't help them and they have to go to the light or cross over or just stop scaring you and move on." And she did tell me one day I was going to do something great for God. She didn't elaborate on that, and I didn't know either. And I didn't know, like I said, I didn't know until about 10 years ago that this was what I meant to be, because Sharon and I finally, we started GhostBeGone.biz right after we met, fell in love, and got married 17 years ago. And we worked our first demonic case several years after that. And it was that moment that I knew that was the path I needed to be on, was to learn how to battle that and become ordained. But I don't know if they knew exactly this was going to be the path. I think my mom had a feeling, but now I thoroughly, like my father believed his life was saved by his guardian angel, I thoroughly believe that I was conceived by divine intervention, and I was meant to do this.
Wow, what an incredible story.
Wow.
That is crazy. We ask people, often, what got you started on this path? But never does the story include, what happened to their parents that got them on this path. That's crazy.
Well, it just, and
totally
as I started peeling the layers away, and started doing research for the book, it was just things I didn't even know that just made one light go after another go off and turn on as to, wow, it's like my mother's Brazilian, and she comes from a little village in the north of Bahia called Cruz das Almas, and that means Cross of Souls. And there's no veil there. The people walk around with the dead as though they're actually still living, and it's an accepted thing. But my mother's devoutly Catholic and extremely spiritual, which you don't find very many of those. They're either devoutly Catholic and that's it, or they're extremely spiritual and not into religion. But she was both. And my father's ancestry, oh my gosh. The cover of the book, that's my family castle back in England. And his family dates back to, we suspect this, I traced it back to this one French knight that left France right about the time the Templars were being chased after and hounded after and broken up and crucified. And he made his way to northern Scotland, and he started Clan Douglas. And then Clan Douglas became Clan Whittingham, then Clan Whittington. The Whittingtons migrated south into England and settled Whittington, England. But it was always rumored, and there was many priests in the family, and there was always rumored that they had in their possession many extremely important religious relics. I'm not saying True Cross or Holy Grail or Ark of the Covenant or anything like that, but very significantly important religious relics that they had to protect. And one of those priests with the last name of Whittington actually got out of Wales and came to Maryland with one of these objects, and it's rumored to be buried somewhere in Maryland. So my father comes from a long line of warriors for Christ too. So it was just like this puzzle that I was able to just sit back and watch magically come together as I just stared at it. I didn't even have to do any work. It was just amazing.
Wow, that's incredible. But Rev, it is time for our next break of the evening. But when we come back, we're going to have more with the Rev. So stay tuned. You are listening to Periscope Uncensored on WBHM Digital Broadcasting, and we will be right back. Welcome back to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Alabama. You're listening to Periscope Uncensored, and I am Clarissa Vasquez. Riding shotgun this evening, as always, is Mr. Menage Spook himself, Joe White.
How you doing, everybody?
So we have got a great guest on the line tonight, folks. We are talking to none other than the Rev. We are talking to Shawn Whittington, exorcist extraordinaire out of Las Vegas, Nevada. And Joe, I know you had another question for the Rev. I'm going to let you take over for just a minute.
Okay, how you doing, Rev?
I'm doing great, Joe. How are you?
Good. Now you mentioned the vivid dreams. Are you able to lucid dream?
And clarify for me your interpretation of lucid dream.
Like controllable?
No, these were just to give you an example. It was one of the dreams was like somebody shooting a gun off in my right ear, and it was so loud that I actually would launch out of bed, and I couldn't hear in my right ear because the ringing was so bad, and I would be shaking and profusely sweating and looking around because I was 100% sure somebody shot a gun off by the side of my head, like a burglar had broken into the house or something. Who knows? You get woken up at 4 a.m. in the morning, you're in the dark by a gunshot, or maybe, a burglar was killed outside my front door by a police officer or what have you. But I would hear this gunshot, and it was like a bazooka. And I would, the dogs are still sleeping, Sharon's still sleeping. I'd go back to bed. I'd calm down eventually and go back to bed. And then this was before my father died. And then we were at his funeral, and he got the 21 gun salute. And that's what I heard in that dream.
Oh,
and so they're like that. And, they say when you're dying, your life flashes in front of your eyes. I don't know if it was like that, but when these dreams would come, it would just actually be like I was reliving it again. Sometimes through my eyes, like I'm a little child again, looking at my mother's face or my father's face, at my surroundings, and going through that same incident again. Sometimes the dream would repeat itself, and now I'm watching through someone else's eyes. I'm standing back, and I'm watching me and my parents and siblings go through that incident. But very, very, very vivid, like they really happen. A couple of times the dreams where I'm watching them, not through my eyes, I would actually try to change them, and I would catch myself yelling at somebody in the dream, don't do that, or don't go there, or, duck, or whatever. And me doing the action of yelling would wake me up. Pretty amazing. But no, I never had control to change them.
Okay. How soon after the dream with the gunshot did your father pass?
Not long, just probably a week or two.
Wow.
So that could be maybe a touch of precognition there.
I don't know. Just, I always tell people, lots of people come to me for counseling for many things. Lots of times it doesn't have anything to do with the paranormal. I'm really happy that a lot of people bought my book that aren't into the paranormal at all. And they read the book with a total neutral view of it, of that whole type of thing. And then they tell me they couldn't put it down. I think what has made me happiest, when you're growing up, like I had nobody to look up to other than my father when I grew up. And when I wasn't, being a real brat, and trying to steal a candy out of a store or playing football with the kids at the park or in school or, later on in my teens, standing in front of the liquor store asking every person that was old enough, hey, would you buy me some beer? Here's $10. Because I had buddies waiting for me at the park to party, what have you. When I wasn't doing that and I wanted to do a little ghost busting, here I am with my old little Polaroid camera and my little tape recorder, and I'd go riding around on my Schwinn out into the middle of nowhere in Southern California in the Topanga Canyon or Malibu Canyon. You go off the beaten path long enough, you find these old shacks and shed off in the country that you can, go and explore in. But I had no one to look up to. But what's made me proudest is that a lot of my colleagues have read this book and love it. And I think that's the most humbling part of this whole thing. And psychics too that don't even know me reaching out to me saying, you don't know me and I don't know anything about you, but your name was given to me by a spirit and I was told to reach out to you. This older woman is standing in front of me with white beads in their hands. I had a couple of psychics reach out to me and tell me this story. Keeps showing me these white beads in her hand. And I finally realized that it was my mother, and she was telling this woman to tell me I needed to start praying the rosary more. Well, I didn't want to start until I got me. Sense. Yeah, I didn't want to start until I didn't have I looked at every single rosary I had. I didn't have one with white beads on it. So Sharon bought me a beautiful white beaded rosary from the Vatican. And my brother happened to go there too and didn't even know I had this dream and said, I was in the Vatican and I didn't have any intention on buying you this, but something made me buy this rosary for you. Sure enough, it was a white beaded rosary. So just, I'm no expert. I tell people that all the time. I don't have all the answers. I don't know what's happening here, but I know what's happening to me is, miraculous, to say the least. And I'm just going along for the ride and trying to do something good with it. Flip side of that coin, though, lot of ghosts hanging around here, and I know many of them follow us home from cases. Many of them, I had many psychics tell me, well, you have so many spirits there that are attached to the property and or attached to you and your wife that they're like a beacon for the other spirits floating by to come and hang out for a little bit. Like it's a rest stop or it's a place to hang out and have fun. So be careful, because if it gets too crowded here, it's going to be a major drain on you psychologically and physically mainly. And so we have to be careful. So I'm constantly blessing and cleansing the home because, it can be like that. I can sit down anywhere in the house and 10 seconds later, I'm out. And I know that's just the pressure and the draining of this, but I don't feel anything malicious or malevolent here in the home. But my wife and I have to be very careful with that. And so it just kind of, I guess, comes with the territory, but I don't know how to put it into terms that anybody would understand what's happening. But I do know it's just, I look at it as something miraculous, and I'm just going along for the ride.
Wow. What is the singular most important thing you want people to take away from your book God, Ghosts, and the Paranormal Ministry.
Oh my gosh. Without giving too much away at the end, I like to be, I would sit here with you guys for 5 hours and just read the book to you on air. But, there's certain things that I don't like to speak aloud about that are in the book. I know I took a big chance on putting them down to paper, and there were times where, especially some of the exorcisms I wrote about at the end of the book, there were times where the paranormal drive-bys and the recon blasts here in the home were off the charts during me writing about those stories, because certain things didn't want those stories to be written about because of the outcome of them. The outcome of them, there was closure brought to them. I, a matter of factly, have said that this book will have the deliverance ministry, demonology, and spiritual warfare communities rethinking their battle strategies. And I know that some in my field may feel that way after they read it. Many of them are so set in their ways that it won't affect them either way. But I just want people to realize that there is something miraculous out there that's watching over all of us, and it's all good, it's all love, it's all light. And times are scary right now, guys, and I believe the reason why I'm probably one of hundreds and hundreds of people that are going through some of the things I'm going through, and I believe it's because evil is every day getting more of a foothold in our lives and in this world. And I think we all know the big battle's coming, and we've already won it. We've already won the war, but there's still going to be some very big, ugly battles. And I think one's coming. And I just want people to read the book and know, hey, make a choice. You can choose a side, but know that there's consequences to the side you choose. If you don't, guys joke with me all the time. Rev, that's all fine and dandy. I love you. You're a great guy, but it's the old saying, I'd rather rule in hell than serve in heaven. Okay, fine. Better be careful saying things like that, because you're going to be dog paddling in a endless sea of lava for the rest of your spiritual existence if you choose the wrong team. So whatever that means to you, the scariest thing right now is complete integration. I'm telling you, exorcism is just the start. And a lot of people think it begins and ends with that. Right now, we're starting to believe that a lot of these truly, truly evil acts that are done by truly evil people their vessel is now completely taken over by the invading unclean spirit. That it's not the soul that was born into that vessel. Over time, for whatever reason, 99.9% of the time, people under attack have brought it upon themselves, whether they realize it or not. And these truly, truly evil people, I believe, are demonic. And they're walking around like you and me, inhabiting human form. They've completely taken over that vessel, and the original soul that was born into that vessel is not there any longer. So I'm telling you, there's something.
I want to touch on that a little further, but it is time for our top of the hour break. So let's sit on that for just a minute, folks. You're listening to Periscope Uncensored on WBHM Digital Broadcasting, and we will be right back after this message. Welcome back to Periscope Uncensored on WBHM Digital Broadcasting. I'm Clarissa Vasquez. Also at the helm this evening is none other than the man who has lost the Duck Dynasty, Mr. Joe White.
How you doing, everybody?
And I say you lost the Duck Dynasty. You shaved your beard.
I did.
You had this really, really long, like, biker beard going on, and you looked like one of the guys from Duck Dynasty. And I named your beard Duck Dynasty, but you've since trimmed it very, very short. It's very dashing, folks. You should get onto our Facebook page and take a look at it, which is facebook.com/Periscope Uncensored. We took some pictures when we were in Gettysburg on Tuesday, and you can You can see Joe and myself in Gettysburg, and he is without the Duck Dynasty. So we have got a great guest on the line. Tonight we're talking to Shawn the Rev Whittington, author of God, Ghosts, and the Paranormal Ministry, which hit the shelves on St. Patrick's Day, of all days, which is fitting because your middle name is Patrick.
Yes. Well, there's actually, I'm one giant story. Everything has meaning. It was, I was born in 1959, and I was baptized Catholic under St. Patrick as my guardian saint. And I was also confirmed in the Catholic religion many years later, again under St. Patrick as my guardian saint. The middle name is because of St. Patrick. But now, 59 years later to the day, on my 59th birthday, I found out my book was getting published. And I found out that it was going to be released on St. Patrick's Day, the following St. Patrick's Day. My birthday's in November. So I found out on my birthday that it was getting published. And then the following March, St. Patrick's Day, it was being released. That was another one of those, the light went on and my head exploded moments, because I realized all of that was arranged on the other side. They all had this all arranged all along. I've always just been along for this ride. So there you have it. That's the reason why.
That's really cool.
I'm telling you guys.
That is really cool. And before we went to break, we were talking about some nastiness, and I know Joe's got a question that pertains to that nastiness. So I'm going to turn it back over to Joe.
All right. In 2018, the Vatican sanctioned the training of 500,000 new exorcists. Do you know about this project? And if so, are you able to pinpoint why?
I do know of that project. And one of the projects there is just for priests. But I'm very happy to announce that they also opened up a course at the Vatican for clergy and laity people like myself. I'm saving up as I can. If you can get your round trip airfare there and pay for the course, I don't know how much your round trip airfare would be. The course, I believe, is in the neighborhood of about $2,500. But once you're there at the Vatican, your room and board is taken care of for about 7 to 10 days. You are shuttled from your hotel room to the Vatican and back every day, and you attend this course being taught by some of the most renowned and blessed and gifted holy people in Catholicism that battle the devil on pretty much on a daily basis. You get training from them. I understand you will also not take authority over, but you will be required to assist on several exorcisms while there. So I'm saving up for it. There's so many things that are going to have to fall in place for me to get out there and make that course. But to answer the question why that's happening goes along with what I said a little earlier. There's something happening. And I think there's going to be a big, ugly battle coming soon. And people on the front lines and some even behind enemy lines know that, we need to start building up the ranks and getting prepared for this, because it's going to be, whatever happens and whatever it is, I think it's going to be very ugly.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with you, Rev. Even in my belief system, which you and I both know is drastically different from yours, but even in my belief system, we know that something is afoot. There is a shift, there is a change, and something nasty is coming down the pike.
Yeah, I believe so too. I mean, there's exorcists there that do, half a dozen or so exorcisms a day in, day out, 24/7. That's and that's not just one exorcist. It's probably, many, many of them that have that workload there in Italy, around Vatican City and the surrounding towns and through that region. So yeah, something's happening.
Yeah, definitely. Now, if I may, and you may not, you may not know, but then again, you might. Do you know where approximately when or where, if it was a singular event or whatever, that is triggering this shift that we've been talking about?
No, I think it probably it's been going on a long time. These things don't happen overnight and come on like gangbusters. I think it's something that probably can't even be pinpointed. It's just, imagine us being surrounded by a big hedge of protection. There is a prayer called the hedge of protection prayer, but imagine that. Right. You can imagine it being a big brick wall or a hedge or what have you, some type of spiritual protective barrier that's already been put in place to protect us. And over time, and since the crucifixion of Jesus Christ, we're talking a long, long time, there is a never-ending onslaught against that protection barrier. And I just believe it's just been so beaten down and so many holes poked through it and so many portions of it torn down to allow so much of that stuff to just, like a sinking ship, flow its way in amongst humanity, that it's just we're on the verge, I believe, of just being totally overwhelmed by it. And if it doesn't matter who you believe in, who you pray to, what your religious belief system is, and even if you don't, oddly enough, many of my clients are atheists. Well, at least they were atheists before they picked up the phone to call me for help. It's hard to be an atheist when there is something it's turned your life and your family upside down, and is, God forbid, you're witnessing someone in your family being possessed, or you've had some, deaths in the family that you can attribute to something, not right. I just want everybody to know there's good times going to come. You're going to have to pick a side. And
right. Yeah, I look at it more as like a snowball. It started out small, but just enough to be a problem, and now it's gaining momentum, it's gaining steam, it's getting bigger and bigger, and more people are getting sucked up into it. They're getting rolled over by it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. It's like at my workplace. I'm only there part time, and I'm there in the evenings. But there was a young girl in there the other day. I guess she heard rumors. It just happens to be my color of choice. I wear all black when I go to work. I'm at an animal hospital, but I have solid black scrubs on, and I usually wear a crucifix outside my shirt hanging. Everybody there knows that I'm an ordained minister. So it might have stemmed from that. And I don't know how she even got into the conversation. And we weren't even really talking about religion, but she just blurts out all of a sudden and yells right in the middle of treatment while there's surgeries going on and, doctors are working with patients and stuff. She just yells out, "Jesus wasn't real." Everybody just kind of stopped and looked at her for a second. And I'm sure there might have even been people there that probably agreed with her. But why just yell that out? And she looked kind of for a second like something forced her to yell that out. And there was just something to me I just felt was odd about the girl. And I want to lead by example. I don't want to avoid her, but I can't even tell you if she's even at work anymore, because I'm so concentrated on doing my job when I'm there. But that's just an example of it's the little things like that to me that stand out, that I notice that there's something odd. A young girl with her whole life ahead of her. I don't know, what was in her upbringing, and I have nothing against atheists. It's okay to not believe in anything. That's okay.
Right.
If I respect you, respect me. But now the people that don't believe the way you believe now feel they need to attack you for it. That's the big
Right.
shift and the big change I know now. When once it wasn't like that. Everybody kept to themselves, kept their beliefs close to their vest. It's hard to keep your beliefs close to your vest when I go out and I'm in my priest collar. But
Right.
yeah, but people want to attack now. That's the reaction, and I think that's all a malevolent influence when the attacking, the violence, the lashing out, not being able to accept you, accept someone for their belief system, and what a day to talk about that. This is National Day of Prayer. And look what all religions are under attack now, not just Christians, not just Jews. Everybody's under attack right now. That's all a malevolence that's running rampant.
Yeah, I agree completely. I totally agree. And, even the people that still keep close to the vest are, kind of stepping out and lashing out and are being attacked. People that follow my faith in other countries are still being murdered, executed, etc., for following our belief system. So, it's crazy. It's crazy. And, I am of the firm belief that there is no one right way, as long as you hold that higher power, you're on the right path, but that can be for another show. But we are coming up on our next break of the evening. But when we come back, we will have our final segment with the Rev. So stay tuned, folks. You are listening to Periscope Uncensored on WBHM Digital Broadcasting, and we will be right back.
Son of a...
Hey, son.
Mother...
Son, what are you doing?
Hey, Mom. I'm getting ready to listen to Periscope Uncensored.
By expanding your vocabulary.
Well, it is uncensored.
Son, the uncensored part of Periscope Uncensored is Jax and I getting down to brass tacks with all aspects of the paranormal. There's no fluff on our show.
So, no off-color commentary?
I didn't say that.
Awesome!
Son?
I just hit my head.
Oh boy. I'll go get you an ice pack. Catch Periscope Uncensored Thursday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern, only on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Welcome back to Periscope Uncensored on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Alabama. I'm Clarissa Vasquez, and of course, the man in the co-pilot seat this evening is none other than Mr. Clean with Hair, Joe White.
How you doing, everybody?
You know what, Mr. Clean, that was on me. That wasn't Aubrey. That was on me. Hey, we have got a great guest on the line tonight, folks. We have been talking to Shawn the Rev Whittington, whose new book, God, Ghosts, and the Paranormal Ministry, just hit the shelves in March of this year. It dropped on St. Patrick's Day. Folks, I have a copy of this book, and as I fully admitted at the beginning of the show, I've skimmed it. I haven't had a chance to thoroughly read it, but I've skimmed it. And what I have read so far is phenomenal. And we've talked to people, who have actually taken the time to read the whole thing, who are just going, oh my gosh, my mind is blown. And so we want to welcome the Rev back to the show. And Rev, we've got a question from the chat room. This is coming from Carl, and he wants to know, what do you think of teens in the paranormal industry that don't believe in Christ?
Hi, Carl. It's totally okay. My mission statement is no judgment. I don't judge. It's okay. Ghost hunting, which I don't do anymore, is a great hobby. If you have a true passion for it and you're trying to, further the field, and we're looked at as a pseudo-science anyway, a non-proven science, communicating with the dead. We're all crazy anyway. I just thought I'd throw that out there. But that's okay. Having said that, two of the largest groups of people that come to me for help are, one, atheists, and two, Ghostbusters, new to the field, that don't have any religious belief system. and they were at the wrong place at the wrong time, said and did the wrong thing, got some attachment onto them that followed them home and has now turned their life and their home and their family upside down, maybe trying to murder them, and now they're calling me. Be very, very careful. Tread lightly. You don't have to believe in Jesus. You don't have to believe in anything. You can just be a Ghostbuster because you think it's a cool hobby, and it is. Be careful. Just be very careful. I don't believe in provocation. I don't do religious provocation, and when I did ghost bust, I didn't provoke. I always respected the dead, because you never know who's watching and listening and who's floating around you, ready to just lower the boom on you, and you give them. They play by rules to a certain degree, but you, in their own demented, warped mind, if that's even a correct way to term it and describe it, you give them what they feel is permission to attach, and they have a right to be there and a right to menace you, then you are in for a world of hurt. So just be careful.
Now, Rev, we all know that you can tell amazing stories, and I know you've got some really good stories in your book, but I know that the listeners want to hear about one of your more compelling cases. And we've got a few minutes left with you. So can we take 5 or 10 minutes and hear about one of your most compelling cases that you've worked?
Yes, the one that changed. I left the field for a while. Sharon and I, after all the years of doing this, we didn't run into our first demonic case until after we met, fell in love, and got married. And one of our first cases was a demonic case. And whatever was there, I firmly believe we misused a Ouija board at this case. And this thing followed us home. And I had no knowledge of how to deal with it. And it lived in our home for about 8 weeks, turned our lives upside down. That led me to reach out for help, put my feelers out in the paranormal community and find someone who could take me under their wing and teach me how to battle this thing. And then that directly led me to staying on the path to become ordained, because my mentor at that time was an ordained exorcist. So that demonic attack left my wife with 3 very rare forms of cancer. Sharon is 16 years older than me. I'm going to be 60 this year, but she still has twice the energy of me, works full-time as an office manager. But that changed our lives. She had a very rare form of tongue cancer, a very rare form of medullary thyroid cancer, which is the worst of the 2 thyroid cancers. This one spreads and there's no cure. You can't just take the thyroid out. It spreads all through the lymph nodes in your throat and throughout your body. It kills you. She was supposed to die. So I took a chapter out of my mother's book, and I would, when Sharon, she couldn't talk for 6 months, couldn't swallow water for months, had a feeding tube in for over a year. She was dying. I went to bed next to her every night thinking she would be dead the next morning. But I would sneak out sometimes and go to this all-night church and crawl on my hands and knees up to the altar and beg for God to spare her life. Many, many years later, she's still here with us. Thank you, Jesus. And a buddy of mine was dying on his deathbed, dying on the East Coast of advanced colon cancer. And he was an atheist. He called me up just hours before he died, told me that he wanted me to know that he had seen God, and God had told him that Sharon wasn't going to die, and that I needed to continue fighting those responsible. But see, I had left the field at that time. Well, it wasn't over for me. The very next case was a case where I was violently attacked, so much so that I thought I was going to die. And I left. I said, I'm done, God. I can't do it any longer. I'm not the guy for this. You've picked the wrong guy. I'm done. And I walked away for about a year. But a pastor friend of mine presented me with a case months later, talked me into helping her with this case. And on that case, I had a vision of the Holy Spirit, which let me know that God had my back, not to worry about anything. And then the very next case, this is how quickly it can happen, brothers and sisters out there. a single mother of 2 little boys. One was 15 at the time, one was 10, I believe. Says that my little boy came home from school, scared to death, said there was a weird kid at the park wanted to play with them, but nobody else could see the kid. So the boy got scared, ran home. Said the little boy chased him all the way home. The mother went out, scoured the neighborhood, scoured the yard, couldn't find this weird kid. Then about 3 o'clock in the morning, the little boy crawls into bed with his mother. She clearly feels him spoon her from behind. And then it all of a sudden is like a meat locker in there. And just the stench was so overwhelmingly disgusting. She had to flip on the nightlight, jump up out of bed and look back, and there was nobody in the bed. So that morning at breakfast, she asked her son, was that you that crawled into bed with me last night? And the little boy said, no, that was the other little boy. She goes, what are you talking about? Well, I came downstairs, Mom, last night to have a snack, and that weird little boy was at the back door asking me to let him in, so I let him in. Well,
oh, no.
Yeah, Mom knew that whatever was going on, that wasn't good. She still thought this was a real boy, so she looked all over the house, couldn't find any sign of it. We're talking in probably 48 hours, the little kid got expelled from school for attacking other schoolmates, then got into a violent altercation with his older brother, and almost killed him. The mom had to send him away to a neighbor's, and then the boy changed. And the mother calls me up and saying, you've got to come right away because what's that thing upstairs is not my child. And that's how the book starts. I start with that just a paragraph from that chapter, and then I go on to the beginning of the story, and I catch up later in the book of what happened with that case. But when I got there, the mother was sitting outside in her robe and her underwear on the street corner waiting for me. And so I went in by myself. Sharon's at home, in bed fighting for her life. I'm by myself. I walk into the house. I know I have to go upstairs. She says, he's at the top of the stairs. You'll know the room. I get upstairs and I can't open the door to save my life. I'm a pretty big guy, but I can't get this door open. Finally, I fight, and I crack the door just far enough to open to where I can see there's an old man sitting on his rear end with his back against the wall in the far corner of the room. I'm like, that's crazy. That's not a little boy. I finally able to wedge my way through the opening and get into the room. And I start walking toward this old man. He looks like he's 100. And I get hit by this force, which was identical to the force that attacked me 2 cases prior to that, which had me leave the ministry. So I knew I was in trouble, and I dropped like a sack of potatoes. I don't know how long I was out for, but when I woke up, I'm outside. I live in Vegas. I'm outside in the desert now. I can't wrap my mind around what has just happened to me. I thought maybe I got mugged and drug out to the desert. But lo and behold, there's this old man sitting about 10 feet in front of me in the dirt, looking down at the ground. I'm like, I don't know what to think. Then a shadow comes over me in the ground from right to left. And I look up to see what the shadow is. And it doesn't take me long to realize that I'm actually on Calvary. And I'm staring at Jesus crucified on the cross. Yes, it was Jesus, but it's not the Jesus that we come to look at. It looks like just a slab of rotting, beat up, mutilated meat hanging on a tree, but I know it's a man, and I know it's Jesus. Yeah. And I always remember seeing the feet left over right. Many crucifixes, the feet are side by side or right over left. I remember noticing that the left foot was over the right, and I always look at crucifixes to see if the feet are that way. I know I have to crawl to that cross because I don't know what's going on, but I know that that's my way out of this. I crawl over to the cross. It's real. It's not a hallucination. I use the cross to help me get up, and I have to get on my tippy toes, and I kiss Jesus on his left foot. And I remember to this day tasting the dry blood, the dry dirt, and the mud off of his skin in my mouth when I kissed his foot. And all of a sudden I had a flashback of this time when I was being chased home by bullies, and I really thought they were going to beat me to death. And my father, who worked hours away, 7 days a week, that one day comes driving home early from work to almost run me down on the road because he didn't expect me to be running across the road. He gets out. It would be too TMI to tell you what he did to these three bullies who were grown kids who were going to beat me up. But I had that flashback. I remembered all of a sudden that feeling that I had that my hero has arrived. I have nothing to fear. And I don't know how I knew what to do next, but I turned, I walked over to the old man. I could now see beyond him, and it was a hill. Down at the bottom of the hill were these several cloaked figures. Couldn't make out gender or facial, nothing like that, just hooded figures, several black dogs running around. And I worked another case that I talk about in the book about those dogs. But I know that that's hell. And this old man is the child. I have to do something. So I dropped to my knees. I lay hands on the child, pour holy water, anointing oil. I'd probably said 50 Hail Marys, 50 Our Fathers. Finally, the little boy looks up at me, and he's a normal little boy, and we're back in his bedroom. And we never said a word about what happened. We just both cried, hugged each other. I helped him up. We walked outside. We went downstairs. There's his mother. She's looking at us like she knows something miraculous happened. None of us are sure what just happened, but she knows something miraculous happened. We sat down. The only thing I could think to say was, is anybody hungry? And I picked up the phone and I ordered Papa John's pizza, which was just down the corner. And we ate pizza and we had some soda and we never talked about the incident. And she got her other son back from her neighbors and they put the house up for sale and they moved to California to be with family. They were en route to California but made a stop over here in Vegas for a while so Mom could see if she could make it. But they were from Louisiana. And she had a Creole background, and a lot of people in her family were into voodoo and hoodoo and southern hoodoo and all of that stuff. And I suspect there was some transgenerational curse or something that was attached to her that went after her son, but we're not sure. So that changed my life right then, and now I'm fearless. I go into any case knowing that it's not me that has the power because I don't have any power. But I crawl over the threshold of every home that I go to on my hands and knees to show ultimate humility because that's my biggest weapon. And sometimes that's all it takes. And you can hear the demons running out of the home as if they're little pigs squealing in pain, just scattering and leaving the home. And sometimes that's all it takes. And I don't have to do anything else but to stand up and now tell these people how to make sure it doesn't happen to you again.
Right. Wow, that is incredible. And so, do we still have the Rev, or did we lose him?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, awesome. We've only got a few minutes left with you, Rev, and so want to give you a chance to, again, promote the book and let people know where they can find you, learn more about you. And so I'm going to hand the floor over to you again.
I know you just got a few minutes left. The book is God, Ghosts, and the Paranormal Ministry. It's a supernatural and spiritual autobiography by yours truly, Reverend Shawn Patrick Whittington. You can get it at Amazon. You can get autographed copies enclosed in a blessing kit off of the ghostbegone.biz website if you are interested in that. I'm a host of Vegas Supernatural, which is on kcorradio.com every Monday night from 5 to 7. I just celebrated 3.5 years there. Apparently the show's doing okay, although I have no clue what I'm doing. And I'm also teaching Introduction to Spiritual Warfare and Introduction to Paranormal Ministry. It's an online course through the Worldwide Bible College and Theological Seminary. If you're interested in that, you can go to my Facebook page. Contact me at my personal email, which is Shawn, SHAWN, LVNV at hotmail.com. And I can interview you and see if you have a little bit of the calling for this ministry and see if you would benefit from taking this course. And I think that's my story, and I'm going to stick to it.
That's awesome. And folks, I highly encourage you to pick up a copy of this book. Whether you get it from Amazon or whether you get it from ghostbegone.biz, pick up a copy of this book You will not regret it. Like I said, I've only had a chance to skim it, and I am already blown away by it. And Rev, I promise I will have it read from cover to cover by June.
Okay. Okay. Don't rush. There's no rush. It's not going anywhere. And everybody, I bless the book every day. Don't be too afraid to read it. I think each and every person that does read the book will get something out of it that's positive. Because no matter, even though I talk about some very ugly things in there, it's all comes from the love from my heart. And it was all written with love. And divine intervention was behind the writing of the book and inspired by spirit. So it's a book that needed to be written, and it's meant to be read. And so use it as a learning tool on how to be prepared from what's coming.
Yeah, definitely. And again, folks, find him on Facebook, find him on ghostbegone.biz. Look him up, get a copy of the book. If you've got the calling, take his classes. You won't be sorry. And, if you've got nothing else better to do, maybe you could tune into his show. If Denise Pridemore isn't able to do her show on Monday nights, you can tune into the Rev's show on KCOR. And I've been a guest on the show twice, so I know it's a good time.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I still don't have a clue what I'm doing.
Do any of us in this business, do we ever really know what we're doing?
I decided not to even worry about it. I just get people on there that I want to meet and talk to, that I admire, and make it seem like it's just a private conversation that I'm allowing however many thousands of people to eavesdrop in on. And that's it. And I got to be me. I got to, I can't change who I am and be something I'm not. So I just try to be me. And if people like me, great. And if they don't, that's okay too.
Yeah. Well, we want to thank you for being such a great guest on the show tonight. We've only scratched the surface, man. Time flies when you're having fun.
Absolutely. But you know me. I love you. I love Kat. Joe, it was such a pleasure to meet you, brother. You all three are on my prayer list, and everybody out there, just try to be a better version of yourself tomorrow than you were today, and so forth and so on. And just work on your humility, work on turning the other cheek. When you want to punch somebody in the face, bite your lip, turn around, and walk away. We need to stop the violence. We got to start getting ready for who we really need to save our energy for, who we really need to fight. And it's coming.
Definitely. Most definitely. So, again, Rev, we want to thank you for being such a great guest tonight. And we wish you nothing but the best, brother. With the book and with your ministry and your classes, nothing but the best for you, man.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right. Have a great night.
You too. Good night, everybody.
Good night, Rev.
So, Shawn Whittington, ladies and gentlemen, and again, you can find his book, God, Ghosts, and the Paranormal Ministry on Amazon.com. You can also get a signed copy complete with a blessing kit at ghostbegone.biz. And on that note, we're going to take our final break of the evening, but when we come back, more with Joe and I. So stay tuned. You're listening to Periscope Uncensored on WBHM Digital Broadcasting, and we will be right back. Welcome back to Periscope Uncensored on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Alabama. I'm Clarissa Vasquez, and riding in the seat next to me, I can't really say the co-pilot seat because we've both been piloting this ship. We've both been captaining the ship. So, riding in the other seat next to me is the man of 1,000 words, but actually says very few, Mr. Joe White.
How you doing, everybody?
I think we're going to have the Rev on again.
Absolutely.
We just scratched the surface with him, yeah. and I had never heard that exorcism story before. I've known the Rev for a while, and I had never heard that story before. And so now that I've had, just a little taste of it, I'm excited to read the book and read more about that particular story that he shared with us, and some of the other experiences that he's had. I'm all jazzed. I'm excited. I want to get home and read that book.
Yeah, I'm actually interested in taking this course.
Very cool. Very cool.
So I'll be contacting the Rev very shortly and find out information on it.
Yeah, I think you should. I think you would do well with that. So, yeah. So let's you and I talk a little bit more about Lorraine Warren. And she was, as we mentioned earlier in the show, she was a pioneer. She and Ed, her late husband, were pioneers in this field. They really paved the way for what we do today. And a lot of people disagree with the legitimacy and the validity of not just her abilities, but the cases that they worked together. They were instrumental in the cases that inspired the Conjuring movies and Annabelle and The Nun and, all of the Conjuring series movies revolve around cases that the Warrens either worked or had a hand in. And a lot of today's investigators, really don't put any weight or validity into her abilities or their data that they collected in those cases. But the fact remains, whether you believe in the Warrens or not, and I'm using that term lightly, regardless of how you feel about them personally, you cannot deny the fact, that they were pioneers in this field.
Correct.
Back when it was still very taboo to even discuss having had a paranormal experience, regardless of the type, whether it was, a ghostly experience or a cryptid encounter or an extraterrestrial experience or some kind of psychic phenomena. It was still very taboo to discuss it. And here is this man and woman who went out and really made a name for themselves to help people. Whether or not they actually did help people is controversial. But, they went out, with the sole purpose of helping people. You got to give them credit for that.
Yes.
And, so I tip my hat to the Warrens as a whole. Because they made it their life's mission.
Yes, they did.
They put everything else on hold. Their family, their friends, their lives essentially revolved around helping people. And it wasn't necessarily research like we conduct. We conduct research and help people in the process. Their objective was to help people and contribute to the research in the process. So you really have to tip your hat to them, regardless of whether or not you believed in her abilities and the legitimacy of their findings. I know there have been some stories circulating around, the events that inspired the first Conjuring movie. Rumors about, how one of the clients actually, kicked them off of their property and may have even punched Ed Warren in the face and, told him to leave. So it goes without saying that, what you see in Hollywood portrayals, should be taken with a grain of salt, just because it has someone's name attached to it. Or just because someone in a T-shirt that's 3 sizes too small says something doesn't necessarily make it so. But, going back to, the fact that, yes, Lorraine passed very recently, and it's very sad. She had a good long life. And she did help a lot of people in the process.
Yes.
She really did. She helped a lot of people, whether it was helping to remove the stigma attached to, discussing having had whatever encounter they had, or whether she was able to, legitimately lend aid to people who believed they were being plagued by supernatural phenomena. And so, she has passed on. She's left the realm of the living. She now has the answers to the questions, that we're all trying to find while we're still here. And then we have the bottom dweller. So Joe, we all heard during the first segment, we heard my take on the bottom dweller, and their belief that it is appropriate and acceptable to contact the spirits of the departed within a few hours after they pass. What's your thought on that? And it's okay if you don't agree with me. There are things that you and I don't agree on. But what are your thoughts on this?
I still think that, well, even though that if there's one person that this individual would be able to contact would be Lorraine Warren,
Mm-hmm.
or even Ed Warren. That being said, it still goes back to, I think, would be disrespectful to the Warrens family. They don't have time to mourn. They don't have time to grieve.
Do you not think, though, that given what Ed and Lorraine did, their life's work, do you think that maybe the family would be understanding?
It's possible, but but then again, if that was my family,
so if something,
I don't think I could do. I don't think. I think that it would be like I think I would be highly upset.
Okay, so God forbid something happens to me,
Mm-hmm.
and the bottom dweller within a few hours of my passing, and you know how passionate I am about our research.
Yep.
The bottom dweller was trying to contact me. You would be opposed to that?
Yeah, I would be opposed to that.
Okay.
I would be.
Okay.
I would be. I mean, give it. It's one thing if you wait, 6 months down the road,
Mm-hmm.
some appropriate timetable, but not like hours or within 12 hours of somebody passing. I don't agree with that. I don't care who the person is. I just think it's totally disrespectful to the family.
Yeah, and part of me says, and I've already said, when I go, I'm coming back and haunting everybody.
Of course you are.
Of course I am. I've already said that. So me personally, if something were to, God forbid, happen to me, I think I personally would be okay with anybody other than the bottom dweller, trying to contact me. And if the best odds of success are within hours after my passing, I'm going to jump on that opportunity. I'm going to be ringing your cell phone, going, hey, I hid the will here.
I'm sure you would. I'm sure you would. I'm sure that I'd be the first person you came back to hunt.
I would. You would be. You're not going to wear that tie to my funeral, are you?
What's wrong with my tie? I see nothing wrong with it.
Let me point it out. So, me personally, I think I would be okay with someone trying to contact me within hours after I pass. But that's because I've spent more than half of my life researching, what happens after we die. But again, I think it's disrespectful to the family who is grieving, for the bottom dweller to go, within a few hours trying to contact the departed. I think it's disrespectful to the family. And as you pointed out, if something were to happen to me, and that individual was trying to contact me, you would be a little upset.
I would be. I'd be more than just a little upset. I'm sure that the rest of your family would be upset too. Even though it's okay for you, in your eyes, you don't have you don't have a problem with it, as you said, but
I would come back, with a few messages. I would say, it's a party over here. Tequila shots all around, no hangover. Second, the will, here's where I hid the will. And third, you had better not wear that tie.
Oh, there's a will?
What do you mean, oh, there's a will? Oh, you're in trouble now.
Let's do this. No.
Yeah, I haven't changed the will yet, so don't bump me off yet. Right now, everything still goes to the kid. So, I don't know. I've got mixed feelings on it. Part of me thinks Lorraine would be okay with it, but the other part of me still says it's really disrespectful. I don't know. I'm torn. What are your thoughts, folks? Hit us up on our Facebook page, Periscope, facebook.com/Periscope Uncensored. Let us know what you think. Do you think it's disrespectful or do you think it's acceptable? Let us know. We want to know. And so with that, we have run out of time. But I know, time flies when you're having fun. But be sure to tune in next week where we have special guest host Cuvid. We're going to flip the script. He's going to interview me. So it's going to be a good time. It's going to be a party. Woo-hoo, woo-hoo. We're going to have the Cuvid on. And then the week after that, we're going to have Aubrey Baldwin back on the show. We love Aubrey. Well, some of us love her more than others.
Yeah, but next week, then we're going to have the smelliest man in the UK. Absolutely.
The biggest goofball.
The biggest goofball.
The Q is going to be right here on Periscope Uncensored. So be sure to tune in. And with that, we are out of time. So for Joe, Kat, the WBHM family of hosts, and myself, we want to wish everyone a great evening, and may all of your ghosts be friendly.
Stay spooky, everybody.